Hello everybody, I'm Tom Vassell.
And I'm Mike DeLisio.
And today we're taking a look at a game called HiFi. And I got to be honest, one of the reasons I was very much interested in playing HiFi was not just because of the way it looks, which is amazing, but the rule book has one of the best covers of a rule book ever. It's called the Ruling Book, but it's definitely a mock-up of a Rolling Stones cover. And the rule book itself even has a few, nods to that, but it's a good rule book. Don't worry about that. But then the rest of the game, when you open it up and you see the back of the board, looks like a record cover, and then there's an actual record player in here. By the way, small heads up, don't throw away the insert in this game. But what did you think about how this game looked, Mike?
Oh man, I mean the look, the vibe of that kind of vintage turntable, even the inside of the cover has kind of like some speakers so that you can slide it into the box and it looks like a setup turntable. I mean, they really kind of went the extra mile when it came to evoking this theme through the packaging. It's a stellar job with that.
Oh, let me show you guys. You can see there's a lot going on here theme-wise. In fact, this turntable here, the record player, is going to go inside the box. The box is set up with a speaker and everything, just for purposes of, how cool that looks. Now, that is kind of the main focus of the game, this turntile here on the record itself. Because the first thing a player does in their turn is they're going to rotate it 1 or 2 spaces clockwise. So you're going to pick it and rotate it 1 or 2 spaces clockwise. And this matters because the action you're going to take is wherever this is. Now, whoever's the first player in a round, and that's going to change based on lower score, whoever's the first player can always go 1 backwards. And you can go farther than that if you want by spending production points. This slider scale here, you just drop this down and you can go farther. I might want to go 3 or 4. Now, most of the actions on this board, so let's take a look over at the board, are going to be drawing cards or manipulating cards or adding dials. Some of the actions let you move your production points all the way up. Some let you add different dials down here under the 4 different types of music. Others let you take cards actions. There are 4 kinds of cards you can take: the guitar, bassist, vocal, and drums. And there's also endgame scoring cards. Some of the cards you are trying to get a certain pattern of cards out on the board. And others are endgame scoring cards where I have knobs under some of the things. Or here, I don't want there to be much vocals at all in the track itself. In the studio phase, players are going to be keeping track here of basically this is the track that you're recording. So when you play something, so this is at the 4-minute mark. I might want to place it here, but you can place stuff pretty much anywhere you want. The thing is, as you place it, you're going to get bonuses. So I don't have to place this here. I might be trying to match gold cards. But if possible, if I can match the tracks, see how this one here matches the tracks? Because you have small, medium, and large waveform there. So if you match tracks, you might get a bonus. If you put it in the right time slot, you'll get a bonus. If you put it next to cards of the same color, you'll get a bonus. But you can kind of do whatever you want. The bonuses are listed over here on the side. Like if you match the time, I get to put out a dial. If I match the wavelength, I get 2 extra points. If I match a card that's the same type, I'll go up all the way to the top in production points here. And if I do 2 or more things, I can even switch cards on the board. And remember, after you play something, you are going to score. Now, there's different ways that things are going to score. Here in the middle of the board, it shows you how many points it's worth to put something out on the board. So in this case, this is worth 3 points when I put a card there. However, anytime someone scores a card there, they're going to cover these up, turning these switches off, which will make future cards in that row less points. Points are kept up here at the top. You'll keep track over here. And then each round, and there's going to be 6, 7, or 8 rounds, depending on 4, 3, or 2 players, you're going to change the turn order because this matters, because remember, whoever's first has the opportunity to move the record backwards, and of course they also have the opportunity to play first into the wavelength. After the number of turns, whoever has the most points is the winner of the game. Okay, so I think that component-wise, when you mix how the components look and the box and everything else, it's just, this game is so on point with that. It is from spinning the record to even moving the record up and down the record track. You don't need to do that, but it's just fun. To the dials. I mean, when I first set this up, I just kept going, that's so cool. That just looks neat. I just really like the setup of the game and how it looked. I mean, for that, like if I'm giving games components, like I don't know that they're like unbelievably quality components, but thematically 10 out of 10.
I agree. And like you said, as far as like the actual quality of the components, I think they're fine. I think they're at least average. But it's also a relatively component small game. In other words, there's not a lot of components to it. It's mostly cards and a few cardboard tokens. But the fact that you still get this great looking production, and it's at a very reasonable price point for, a game this size. They could have gone crazy with it, but I think they did it just right. Like, it still looks incredibly sharp on the table. The components are all of good quality, and they kept it at a price point that made it reasonable for a game of its type. Really well done with the production.
Yeah, and the theme only slightly carries through the gameplay, though. So keep that in mind. There is some theme. I'm putting out waveforms, and you might want to try to match them. And I have a card that says, I don't want a lot of bass in this, in the track. And the track is so many minutes long. But really, the record is a rondel where you're moving things around and around and around and around. These slide dials are basically just points you can use, and then there's victory points. So the theme is there, but I think I need to warn people to some degree. While it's all there, it's mostly surface level. At least I felt.
Yes, I agree. I mean, I think to some extent it's a Euro game, make no mistake about it. And I think there's only so far you can tend to go with theme and Euros, integrating in the mechanics. I think this is at least on the high end of average as far as introducing and integrating theme into a Euro game. I think that they did it where they could, but I agree with you. The kind of the centerpiece component of the game being that spinning LP with a completely not necessary tone arm, but I love it that you can pull out. It's a rondel. It's an action selection system. And am I glad they did it this way? 100%. Is it really truly thematic? No, because no one plays a record to take actions. You know what I mean? But I think they did a good job with what they had. In a Euro game, it's really hard to have a lot of integrated theme with mechanics.
To that end, though, you have to realize this is a pretty small game, actually. It looks bigger than it is. And as a quick aside, the game has rules for an advanced variant. And that advanced variant basically lets you use the wave cards, and you can flip them to the alternate side so that the bonuses change throughout the course of the game. I want to point out that A, that's not advanced. That's just more random. And B, I don't think you should play that way because, as I said, it's more random. It just was an odd thing that they called that an advanced game. It's just the base game gives a really good bonus for getting two of the same. To have that really good bonus might be random. It seemed a little odd to me.
Yeah, I guess it's advanced in the sense that it gives you maybe one more decision you can make on your turn. But I agree. I don't think that it's more complex necessarily. Again, maybe a slightly wider decision space on a player's turn, but you do increase the randomness by doing that. I have found that now that I kind of know what the game is, I just tend to play it on the basic level. And I echo the fact that this is a much smaller game than it appears, not in the footprint sense, but in the sense that this is essentially a card game. And it's not a terribly heavy card game. It's a medium light card game in my mind, as far as when you boil it down to what it is.
Yeah, so the decision space here is easy to do in a sense. You want to put cards out quickly because you get more points for them. but you also are trying to get these bonuses and set up for your end game scoring. There's a few worries I had about it. The rondelle is nice, and the fact you can spend points to make it go farther is great. But since one of those refills your points and bonuses refill your points, I found that almost every time I could just go wherever I wanted and take whatever bonus thing I wanted, except, and this is the clincher, the thing it's on. And because you can't go to the thing it's on, this game is not particularly good, in my opinion, with two players. Because if I want the same action you just did, I cannot take it no matter what I do. And so we found, when I did my first game of this was two players, we found that we thought one of the actions was better than the others, the one that gives you two cards, because the more cards you have, the more things you can do. And so we were battling to get fewer points throughout the game so that we could go first to get that action, and the other person just picked some other action. Because again, first player can go back one or forward two. It's not a big rondelle. You can hit almost every spot by doing that. So I found that to be, I didn't find the rondelle to be particularly engaging. I'd say I want a green card. I guess I'll go there. I don't really want that action, but I want the green card. I don't know. I almost wish they had two spinning rondelles where the one in the middle, the different actions kind of mixed up sometimes, but I don't know.
Yeah, I can totally see that. You're right. It's not a terribly large rondelle, and there's not a huge variation between the actions that you're taking either. You know, it's mostly drawing cards from a particular type of deck. I mean, there's more to it. Like you said, there's one that allow you to get two and things along those lines. But what you're doing in the game, as far as the actual actions that you're doing, are not terribly dynamic. You're drawing cards, you're placing them, trying to get them in places physically on the board that will get you some combos, get you some bonuses, things along those lines. Nothing that we haven't really seen before there. And so I agree with you that the rondelle is a little bit less dynamic than I wish it were. The actions are a little bit less dynamic than I wish they were. It still leads to what I feel like is a kind of a satisfying experience of placing cards out, doing things that allow you to do nice little kind of cascading, but it's not quite as dynamic as I wish it were.
Yeah, so that, for me, my rating on this game is a 6.5. I like a lot of it. I think it's a very enjoyable game. And the theme, I almost gave it a 7 because I thought the theme is just so cool. But my problems with I thought the slight actions on the rondelle did not make, the best part of this game to me is putting that card on the board. I don't know why. I just feel like it looks good there. I'm matching it up. It feels good. I get the bonus. My other problem then is with the bonus cards, the scoring cards, because they will determine whether you win or lose, straight up. And you draw one and you're like, yes, I already am doing this. I'm already getting, they just felt a little too lucky for me. And also, that action becomes really critical in the last several turns of the game. You want bonus cards. There's nothing, those endgame bonus cards, they don't hurt you to draw them, so you might as well draw some. At the beginning of the game, you want the bonuses for getting the different colors organized, because you can get a lot of points that way and pull off into a lead. But the other endgame scoring ones, I thought were just a little too lucky. So that keeps me just shy from recommending this game. Although I would say that if you know someone who's a fan of, stereos and records and all that, I would get this for them because it's just that good of a production.
Gosh, this is one where, obviously we don't discuss these things before we come into a review, but so much of what you're saying echoes my experience. And I want to state, I came into, this was a Gen Con 2024 release, and I put on my most anticipated list that this was my number one most anticipated game, and it was primarily because of the theme and what I had seen of the production. I want to make it clear that my review doesn't reflect that it was my number one anticipated game in any way. I find that the game is not bad. It's not a bad game at all, but it's not very exciting. And so I was saying, just on the mechanics of the game, it's pretty slight, has some of those randomness issues, not terribly dynamic, but I still enjoy playing it. I think it's a 6. But The theme is so good and the production is so nice that I'm coming to a 6.5 also. I can't quite recommend it, but
It's so close, right?
it's so close. It's so close. But I also agree with you that if there's somebody that is really heavily into vinyl collecting and is a board gamer, they're probably going to really enjoy it enough to be something that they're going to want. You know, as a reviewer, I have to look at it as it is. Mechanically, it's not quite there. It's close, but it's not quite there. And the theme is really, really nice. But I can't just across the board recommend it because there's some of those issues that we've been talking about. So very close, not a bad game, but a 6.5.
Well, there you go, folks. That is HiFi. I'm Tom Vassell.
I'm Mike DeLisio.
And Record Scratch. Or something.
Vicky, 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 Vicky.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching another video from the Dice Tower. Hey, you want to learn more about us, communicate with us? We have a Facebook group, we have a Discord channel, lots of different ways to get involved with the Dice Tower. You can find that in our Linktree link below. So just click that, it will take you and you can communicate with us on Facebook, join our Facebook groups. There's lots of cool things that you can find and become part of the Dice Tower. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Tom Vassell.